things I do for you people. So I did try to grow an actual mustache this week based on the character Coach Ted Lasso, which is the sermon series that I'm going to be doing. And it didn't look good. I shaved the beardage around it, and I looked at it yesterday, and it really just looked like breadcrumbs had attacked me. And I thought you all deserved better. So, and my wife is grateful that I shaved it too. But anyway, this is the best that I could do right now as I talk about a show that over the summer I fell in love with, and it's called Ted Lasso. It's on Apple Plus TV. It's the story of an American football coach who gets inexplicably hired to coach a British soccer club. Now, to me, this was and is a perfect show because of the story and mainly because of the characters, especially Coach Lasso. But I find it perfect because as I watch the show, I can connect what we do as people of God, followers of Jesus, with the people on the show. Now, in my sermon series, Lasso Lessons, I will not spoil the show because I do encourage you, those of you who are 18 and older, to check it out when you can. This is not a family fun night type of show, okay? This isn't Disney, so just want to lay that out. And I will cover 3 important themes that run throughout the show. The themes are the power of name, the power of forgiveness, and the power of hope. Today's sermon is the power of name. For those of you who have a smartphone, a phone directory, or a Rolodex, how many names are in there? Robin Dunbar, a professor of evolutionary psychology, does research trying to understand the behavior mechanisms that underpin social bonding in humans and primates. In the early 1990s, he began studying primates and the size of their social groups. He wanted to know how many individual relationships the primates could maintain within their larger social context. Through his research, Dr. Dunbar says that there are about 150 people whose names and faces we can remember without any assistance. His research and others have shown that we are far better at remembering faces than we are names. But when you remember someone's name, the bonding is almost immediate. Now, I try hard to remember people's names, and before I had children, I was really good at it. But now I'm lucky if I don't confuse my kids Paul and Maddie with my cats Daisy and Violet. But I learned the importance of names from my dad, Pastor Paul Conrad. He loved learning people's names because it connected their life with his. When people would visit his church, he would write them a thank you note and then remember them the next time they came to church. And people always appreciated being remembered. Getting to the show, Coach Ted Lasso is really good at remembering people's names. In the very first episode, as soon as he sets foot in Britain, he asks the driver who picks him up his name. Now, I didn't think much of this interaction until a few episodes later when Coach Lasso goes to the driver's family restaurant. The driver was impressed and touched that the coach remembered who he was and what he and his family did for a living. Then in that first episode, Coach Lasso meets a young man who is the equipment manager for Richmond. That's the name of the team. The equipment manager's name is Nate. When Coach Lasso asks Nate his name, Nate is taken aback because no one on the club knows it. Even though he has worked for the club for a long time, no one cared enough to ask. Oh, is this? Let's see. Well, you get the idea. All right. I'll put it on my sermon right there. Okay. So, getting back to Nate. See, no one on that team cared to know his name, and you all were more concerned about my fake mustache than you were about Nate. Okay, well. But so, Nate's been with this team for years, and nobody knows his name. And then later on in the episode, when Coach calls Nate by his name, Nate is shocked and surprised that someone's talking to him and that the coach remembered him. He's even more shocked when Coach Lasso asked Nate for his opinion about the team. So throughout the show, this is what Coach Lasso does. He asks people their names, and he remembers them. He even does this for the fans who insult him on and on because his coaching style is different. The fans who are so hard on him are amazed and shocked and even honored that the coach of their football team knows them. People always appreciate being remembered because all of us like to feel that we matter. Look at what happens in our gospel when Nathanael discovers that Jesus knows who he is. We don't know much about Nathanael, but we do know that he is opinionated. When Philip invited Nathanael to come and see Jesus of Nazareth, Nathanael says, "You're kidding, right? Nazareth? That backwater town?" Now, that got me thinking, and I know that I have friends from Clemens, North Carolina who watch, but just forgive me. See, for many years, people like to put down Clemens, which was a bedroom community of Winston-Salem. And the running joke was, at a raffle, the announcer would say, third prize is 2 weeks vacation in Clemens. Second prize is 1 week vacation in Clemens. And the first prize, of course, you don't have to go to Clemens at all. The reputation of Clemens has improved vastly. It's a beautiful city. It's a wonderful place. But Nathanael's opinion about Nazareth kind of mirrors this. And his opinion, though, changes about Jesus when Nathanael discovers what Jesus knows about him. Jesus says, "That right there is a real Israelite. He is not a fake," which is a high compliment in those days. Nathanael is amazed that Jesus knows anything about him. And now he goes from insulting Jesus to calling Jesus the Son of God and the King of Israel. He's the first disciple to do that. And that's a pretty big step when you first meet someone. What changed his mind? Not what, who? Jesus changed him. Jesus says, "Nathanael, I saw you before Philip called you." Jesus saw him. Remember earlier, we are much better with faces than with names. Now imagine when we get the face and name correct. Jesus sees us. He sees our faces. He knows us. He knows our names. But this knowing goes beyond just knowing about someone. To know is to connect, to bond on a deeper spiritual and emotional level. And Jesus is not afraid to reveal this bond to us, just like he does with Nathanael. In fact, God is pretty good at revealing his relationship with us throughout the Bible. Look at our reading from Jeremiah. God calls Jeremiah to be a prophet, and Jeremiah is all, "Who, me? Are you crazy?" But we know that God is not crazy. God is correct. Because God knew Jeremiah before Jeremiah said his first words, and before Jeremiah breathed his first breath. What this shows is that God knows us way before we know God. God is our bookend, the first to know us and the last to hold us. I believe Jesus knows us before we know ourselves, let alone before we know Jesus. I believe Jesus knows us before we are baptized. You can look at Psalm 139, and as the writer talks about how Jesus formed him. I see it works like this in the gospel. God knows Nathanael, but now he makes the knowledge public. God knows us, but in baptism, it is Jesus who makes it public. And in communion, God makes public that he not only knows us, but sees us. He sees us for who we are, his children, and for what we can be, his followers. Just like Jeremiah, look at how God responds to Jeremiah's fears. God knows Jeremiah, and God sees Jeremiah. Not just his face, but God sees Jeremiah's potential. God sees Jeremiah for what Jeremiah is and can be, not for who others say he won't be and can't be. Our young people, those here and watching online, please take note that one reason Jeremiah was hesitant is because he was young. But Jesus doesn't see age as an obstacle. And that is something we need to remember. This world loves to label us sinner, loser, weak, nothing, freak. But those names don't matter. The limits that others put on us do not matter. What matters is what God says matters. What matters to God is you. What does God call you? What does God call me, us, and our neighbors, the people we meet every day in our lives? Yesterday, the 20th anniversary of 9/11, Kristen and I watched the ceremony from New York where families of victims on 9/11 read the names of the people who died that day. They read the names and the names of their loved ones and then talked about them. Each and every one of those names was a real person with a real family and real friends. They were real. They are real. They mattered then, and they matter now. Which leads to the Lasso lesson for this week. On the show, Coach Lasso knows how powerful knowing someone and their story can be. So as you go about your daily lives this week, when you meet someone or you connect with someone from work, school, or a restaurant or retail, a grocery store, take a moment and learn their names. Ask how they are doing. Ask how their lives are going. Then remember, use a little notepad, use your phone, just write down their name and something about them. Especially if you are in a retail setting or restaurant or meeting. And the next time you go in and you see that person you have met, go and ask for an update. Talk to them. Remember their story and remember their name. I remember 9/11, and I remember how people treated one another right after it happened. People seemed to be a little nicer, opening doors for others, nodding, acknowledging people as they walked by them, and the conversation seemed more sincere. I call this a Lasso lesson, but it's a lesson that was first taught to us by Jesus. And I believe Jesus is calling us to bring that sincerity back. For those of you who have your commit cards, and you have them with you, of course, if you have them with you, God bless you. That's wonderful. Refer to your commit cards. For those of you who do not have a commit card, you can pick one up. Linda, do we have some in the narthex? Okay. One way or the other, we will get you a commit card. We are committed to giving you a commit card. So, on this commit card, you're asked to commit 3 different ways. To have a personal relationship with Jesus, to have a personal relationship with your neighbor, and to have a personal relationship with St. Paul's, or if you're visiting the faith community that you call home. Personal relationship. Let us be personal with each other. Let us relate. Let us connect. Speak to one another and not at one another. Because when you know someone, it is harder to judge them based on appearance or innuendo. As Brené Brown says, people are hard to hate close up. When you know someone, you stop judging and you start acting like a disciple. And our Lord, our coach, Jesus, can then say, "There goes a real disciple." Amen.